Hi, everybody, and welcome to my YouTube channel. I'm so glad you're here with me today. As most of you know, I've been really busy making a lot of videos and blog hops and a lot of things for Altenew, and I haven't had a chance just to do something completely different for me. And we are leaving on vacation on Memorial Day, and I wanted to make a video for you beforehand, but I didn't have a clue what I wanted to do, and I was going through some of my old paper packs, just trying to get some inspiration just to do something different. And I found this pack I've had for, oh, who knows how long. It's made by Prima. I'm not even sure the name of it. But when I opened it up, I really got inspired because these are my favorite colors, these blues and pinks and lavenders and lots of different papers here. And so I was just like, oh, and I loved this one. So I thought, well, what can I do with patterned paper that's just something completely different than I've been doing? And so I decided, well, okay, what can I do? I will go ahead and use something by Altenew. Here I'm using the Spring Roses die set, which is just dies of roses. There's 3 of them in the set. And I thought I'd just do a little bit of inlay with these today, just something kind of on the simple side, and it takes a little bit of time, but it always turns out pretty. So what I did was I picked out some of the papers from the pack that are just plain colors. Like there's a blue one and a pink one, and there's a lavender one. And then I'm going to use, I couldn't find anything to pack green to make for the leaves. So I found this wonderful gray green that kind of goes along with the gray green in the patterned paper. And this is from the Tim Holtz Ideology Classic cardstocks. They're textured cardstocks and they're really cool. I just got it on Amazon, where I usually get everything because in Alaska we have limited areas to buy anything. I'm going to use this as my background for my main card panel. And then they had a lot of little sentiments in the card pack. And I thought, you know what, I'm just going to try to do everything out of this card pack. And here's the little sentiment that I cut out of this, and I'm going to do something with that for the sentiment. But I have to say that I have not made this card as a sample. I don't know exactly how it's going to turn out. You're going to walk through it with me. So hang on, and we're going to get started in just a second. Okay, so the first step we're going to do is just cut this die that I picked, the one out of the 3, and cut it out of this bone colored. It may look white to you, but it's actually an ivory cardstock that I thought fit better with the papers. This is going to be my outline, and then I'm going to cut it from each of these to get the parts to plug in the outline. So I'm going to do that off camera because it's just die cutting, and I'll come back when I have it all together. Okay, I've done my die cuts in the lavender, pink, and blue, and you can see all the little pieces that I've got here. And I wanted to show you how I did that. So I just cut the green, and here it is. It came out with the actual paper having kind of released, and it came out looking like this on the back side of the green. So what I did to all the others is I used this removable Post-it tape. It comes in a wide width, which I really appreciate. It also comes in I think a 2-inch width. No, this is the 2-inch. I think it comes in a 1-inch width too. I have both. And I push that on there because the idea is to not have, you know, all these little pieces come loose. So then what I do is I go ahead and use the opposite end of my picker-upper tool, whatever you call that. I don't know what that is, a jewel picker, something like that. Very handy little tool. And this end just kind of has a blunt metal end on it. And I go through and push down on all of these pieces to make sure that they stay on the tape and don't come off with the die. Now the leaves, which is what I really want with this green, have little teeny holes, and this won't fit in them. So I'm going to show you what I'm going to do with that in a minute here. I don't really need all these pieces of the flowers in the green, but still I'm doing them all. Then I'm going to use my pick tool here and go through these little holes with the leaves. I don't want to press so hard that I make a hole in the paper, but it's just to get those little pieces to stick on the tape instead of to stick on the die. So I'm just going through, and each hole I'm just kind of picking in really gently. These are the leaves that are going to be green, so I want to make sure I get all of them. Let's see here. And if they don't release, you can just put it back down and do it again. So here I'm going to start taking this off and see if I have any pieces that didn't stick, and I have a few, but that's okay. This one, I'm going to put it right back down. Excuse me for talking over myself. That's what happens when you're doing this live and you're not doing a pre-recorded voiceover. But so many of you have told me that you like me doing it this way, that I am doing it this way. However, you know, sometimes I talk over myself. This one still didn't release, and I don't know why. Get out of there, little piece. It's this little piece right here. And I'm going to take the outline out of this so you can see the outline. Now I have several outline stamps that I can use in all these different colors on some other project. Can you see these? See, here's the lavender one, and there's the green one, and then the pink and the blue, and I can use these on some kind of project just by themselves. So here's the green one that I have here, and it's this little piece that did not want to come out. So I'm going to take it out, and it fell right there, and I'm going to use my pick tool and pick it up if I can. If not, I'll do this. Put it off of there, off the tape, and pick it up and put it over here where it goes. So now you can see that I've got all these pieces all laid out here. This is an extra piece of all the different colors. And that's how I'm going to put everything back together again in my final piece. Now I'm doing something a little bit different, because most of the time, if you're making an inlay, you would go ahead and just cut the main outline piece into your background piece of paper and set it in there and then put all the pieces in. But because I'm going to, of course, I chose to do something different. I'm going to do my outline a little bit different way. So, you know, I had to choose something that was a little bit more complicated, and I've actually never done it this way, but I came up with the idea this morning. So, you know, live and learn. We'll see if it works. I'm putting this piece of double-sided, permanent double-sided tape on the back of my outline that I'm going to put all the inlays in, which is just an ivory. And then what I'm going to do, because I'm doing it differently than normally, I am going to fussy cut around this and see how this goes to make it just a freestanding piece. Now I forgot to put my glasses on, so I'm going to put my magnifying glasses on, cut this out, and then I will be right back. Okay, I finished fussy cutting out my outline, and you know what? It wasn't near as hard to do as I thought it might be. Like I said, I've never done an inlay this way with a freestanding kind of deal, but I thought about it this morning and decided to try it. But if you don't want to be as crazy as me, just go ahead and take whatever's going to be your background panel of your card. This one isn't cut down, of course, but you just cut out, you die cut this whole image out of the middle of that. And you take the entire thing out, so there's just a big hole, and you put your outline piece that's like one of these back into it. and you, on the back of your actual big card panel, you put your double-sided adhesive. So it covers the whole back, a permanent double-sided adhesive. And then you don't have to fussy cut this thing out. You just set all the pieces right into your back panel of your card. But no, this morning I thought, hey, I wonder what would happen if I did it this way. And the reason that I did is that I have an idea for the background that I wanted to try, and it means that I couldn't inset this into it. So either way works. If you want to do and be crazy like me, then go ahead and do it this way. It really was not difficult to do. So I would say that this gives me an opportunity to tell you again that don't be afraid to just experiment. I've never done this like this before, but I had the idea this morning and I thought, well, why not? Even if I'm on a video with you guys, because we're always learning. You know, some of you know I have a doctorate, a PhD in education, and in the education world, there's this saying about being a lifelong learner. And it's so important because one of the things that I found out when I was studying all that was that there are brain studies that show now that, you know, as we get older, like I'm 70, and as we get older, our brains are still growing. I don't know how many of you knew that, but yes, we have this thing called neuroplasticity in our brains. And no matter how old we get, if we exercise our brain and we learn new things, our brain cells are growing. And I don't know about you if you're older like me, but I don't want to be losing any brain cells. I want them growing, not going the other way. So don't be afraid to try new things. The more you experiment, the more you're willing to just jump in there and take a risk, the more your brain's growing. So, you know, that's pretty cool, in my opinion. They used to think that when you got older, your brain just kind of died on the vine, but oh, no, that's not the case anymore. Now, for those of you who are young and you don't have to worry about it, well, yay for you, but someday you will, and don't forget, your brain continues to grow. So after having said all that, I'm going to try my experiment. So I'm going to go in here and start with the green, and I'll show you how I do it, and then I'll do it off camera because it gets pretty boring just watching. I just take each piece. Now this is the permanent double-sided adhesive, and I just push it in there. And I use my little jewel picker to do it. And I just make sure I press down each one of the colors that I want. So I'll do some of these greens, and then I'm going to do the rest off camera so you don't have to be bored watching me, because it's just a matter of taking them off of these individual sheets and putting them in the appropriate places for the right colors. Now, remember, the reason that we put the temporary tape on the back of these pieces is so that it keeps all the pieces looking like they're supposed to. The first time that I did this a couple of years ago, I didn't know to do that, and they just all dumped out, and there were millions of pieces. Well, you know, that's an exaggeration, but it looked like millions of pieces, and I was thinking, how in the world am I going to figure out where all these pieces go? So it was kind of a disaster, and it didn't really work. So I learned the hard way that, and with, you know, taking some tutorials and things, I learned, oh, that's what you do. And I really like this Post-it tape because it comes in this wide width. And I'm just taking these off and putting them in their little appropriate spaces. Even the little pieces, like these little tiny leaf pieces, work just great with this method. And you just put them in there and make sure that they're pressed in onto that tape, and I can use the other end to make sure that they are so they don't come out on my card. And I think I'm going to make the one flower pink and the other one a combination of blue and lavender. So once I get 2 more leaf pieces put in here, I'm going to just go ahead and go off camera and do it so that you don't have to watch me, but now you've got the idea. And these are the little ones. The bigger ones are even easier. So, okay, I'm going to go off camera and finish this, and then I shall return. Okay, I have finished my inlays here, and you can see that. I don't know if you can tell that I made the inner area of this big flower lavender and the outer area blue. And then this is the pink. And I also don't know if you can tell on camera, but the reason that I used the paper pad, this is a little bit off here. The reason that I used the paper pad was because the paper was a little bit variegated and it wasn't just plain like cardstock. So I thought that would be a good choice for these flowers because the petals look variegated, but you could use regular cardstock. You could ink panels with inks and cut your flowers and your leaves out of those. There are a whole lot of options for what you can do to make this. And remember that I fussy cut it out because I wanted it to be almost like an embellishment separate like this. But you can do what I said before, take your background panel, cut the die out of it and take all the innards out and put your outline in, and then do it right onto your card panel. And you can just put your whole piece of adhesive behind the card panel and not have to cut anything, not have to fussy cut anything. But I just decided to go for something different today, and we'll see how it works out. So this is all done now, and we're going to work on the background that I want to use. So I'm going to put this aside, and then I'm going to show you, I made a background already. Can you see this? These are the same dies, but what I did was I dry embossed them into a piece of watercolor paper because it's thicker than normal cardstock. Now, do you know how to dry emboss a die or know how to dry emboss a stencil? It works with either one, and I'm going to just show you what works for me and then talk about it a little bit. Okay, dry embossing is very similar to using 3D embossing folders in that everybody's die cut machine is different. In fact, I use a Gemini Junior and I ended up having to buy a new Gemini Junior, and my old sandwich that worked with my old Gemini Junior doesn't work with my new Gemini Junior. So you have to investigate this yourself, and I will show you what works now with my new Gemini Junior, but it's kind of crazy. I had to try all kinds of combinations to get the die to make an imprint like this without cutting through the paper. Now, like I said, this is watercolor paper, so it is definitely thicker than normal cardstock. And I would suggest that not necessarily with when you're doing this process, exact same process with stencils, however, and they'll make a mark like this on your indented on your paper. But stencils, you don't need as thick of paper to make that happen. But here with the dies, I used a thicker paper, and you could probably use like 110 cardstock also and make it come out right. But for mine, I ended up deciding that I needed a metal shim, which normally that's not something I would do with embossing. However, for my machine, this is what worked. The metal shim, the magnetic shim. Then I did this is watercolor paper shim too, because it wasn't enough if I didn't have that in there. Then you put your die down with the cutting edge up. Then you put the paper that you're going to want to imprint in. This is just regular paper here. I'm just giving you an example. And then you put your embossing, this really soft mat that comes with your machine, and then you put your other cutting plate on top. So for me, it's the cutting plate on top, then the embossing mat, then my paper and my die, then another shim, then the magnetic, and then the metal, and then a cutting plate. That sounds really complicated, doesn't it? The bottom line is, start with, in my other machine, I didn't need the metal. I just had I had my plastic shim and this, and I didn't need the extra paper shim. And then I would just put down my die on my magnetic one, and then the paper, and then that, and then that. So what I'm saying to you is don't try to memorize what I'm doing here, because it won't work for you, probably. You need to figure out what works with your machine. But what I did to make this happen is, and with all of it, is I used all 3 dies and laid them out just like we just looked at, put the paper on top of it, put the embossing mat on top of that, and then my cutting plate, and ran it through. And then when I came out, it had all of those, the same that we're doing the inlays for, are just all on here, just with dry embossing. And I just thought it would be a really neat background. And that's why I didn't actually make my inlay in this piece, because I wanted this to kind of be the textured background of the same flowers. So now what we're going to do is, I decided that I wanted a deckled edge on this. Do you know what that is? It's just a torn edge. Now, I do have a die that makes a deckled looking edge, but I wanted to show you just how to do it yourself. You just can tear the edges of the paper like this. And I use my left hand and come towards me, but people do it all different ways. It just depends what is more comfortable for you. I'm going to take just a little edge off of this, just tearing it, because I think that this kind of an edge looks really interesting. It looks more, I guess kind of organic. I don't know, that's not a word I use very much, but you know, it just looks kind of neat. It just gives it more texture. It doesn't look so cut on a paper cutter or trimmer. And, you know, you don't have to, it's something you don't have to be perfect in, isn't it? That's cool. You just have to be careful you're not cutting off or tearing off too much. Just a little strip down the side like this, all the way around. And I think it ends up giving it a really nice textured look, instead of such straight edges that look very, you know, very cut. This kind of gives it a cool look. Okay, and like I said, there's dies that do this, but if you don't have a die that does this, look how easy it is just to do it on your own. This is a little bit thick paper because it's that watercolor paper, but I'm persisting here with my hand. Just little rips, just that torn paper look. It gives your card one more area of interest. The more you can add texture. Now, there's such a thing as adding too much texture, not necessarily in most cases, but people use all different colors and all different textures, and then the card gets to looking so busy that it doesn't look good anymore. So you want to be careful about that. But the more you can add dimension or texture to a card, the more finished it looks and the more interesting it is. Now here's my background piece that I'm going to be using. So now I am going to bring out my paper trimmer and trim this down to 5.5. Let's see here, 5.5 by 4.25. I just recently purchased this Stampin' Up trimmer. Now, I've never done anything with Stampin' Up products. I don't know much about their company, but what I really like about it versus my, what did I have before? Oh, you know, what's the name of the company that's got orange on everything? I don't remember. That, just talking about my old brain right there, is that when I used it to score something, I had 2 blades. I had the cutting blade and the scoring blade, but I had to take this off and put this on. On this one, I saw it on a demo, on a Stampin' Up demo, and it has a place to put on either end. You can put the one you're not using. So you can either use this one or you can use this one, and you don't have to take it off. And I like to score on this instead of on one of those little things with all the grooves in it, because I take my bone folder or whatever else I'm using and I always jump over to the next one. I can't just draw a straight line. Don't ask me why. it just doesn't work for me. So I like scoring on this. And when I saw that I didn't have to change the blades, I went on to the Stampin' Up website and just ordered one. And it just came about 2 weeks ago, and I love it. It's the same basic, oh, Fiskars, that's it. Now my brain's working. It's the same basic machine, but with this scoring blade on here, it just saves me a whole ton of time if I'm doing scoring, making card bases or something. I don't have to change the blades or worry where the other blade is or anything. So all that to say, I'm a fan of the Stampin' Up cutting board. So here is my background piece. I love this paper. What can I say? This is me in a piece of paper, which is why I fell in love with it this morning. So I'm going to just put this on here. Let me see where my inlay is. I would like to make this, to tear off a little bit more on this if I could, to have that background edge show more. Like I said, I'm doing this kind of on the improv method. I haven't done a sample card, so I'm just checking this out. And I want it to sit about like that, and I don't think I can take off any more on the sides. But I sure do like that paper, so I'm trying to see if I put it all. No, I think I'm just going to have to go in the center, and that paper is just going to be a really pretty little floral edge around it. So, okay, that decision's been made. I'm going to get some foam tape, and I'm going to put this down with foam tape onto my background. So we'll get that done. Foam tape, again, adds another bit of dimension to your card. And as long as you don't put foam tape on top of foam tape on top of foam tape, it doesn't make it that thick and it goes fine through the mail. Okay, I'm just going to put a piece down the middle here. You know, one thing that people say they like about me doing this in real time is just the fact that sometimes I make mistakes. And you know what? Everybody makes mistakes, don't they? And that's just part of the way it is, part of life. But I know a few people have said to me, I saw that you had to redo something or whatever, and you know, that means that you are not perfect either. And I started laughing. Oh yeah, right. Let me tell you, nobody's further from perfect than me. But I persist. That's what I do. Oh, I hate to cover that paper up. I'm going to make another card just with this paper. But I love the way it looks, so colorful. And I am going to just put this down. Now, it gives a dimension with just that little bit being raised up. And then can you see the dimension that's added by that embossing, the dry embossing there? It just gives it a lot of interest. Now, I am going to go ahead and put this down with foam tape as well. And I have this little sentiment that I chose from there, and I don't even think you can read it from there, but it says, be yourself, and I liked that. But what I'm going to do is cut it out with a little circle die, like that, and make a circle sentiment. So I am going to put this on with foam tape. I actually could just take the backing off of this and stick it on, but I think I want it raised up again a little bit, just to give it a little of emphasis. I'm really glad you guys are here with me today. I am leaving on Monday, Memorial Day. If you watch this later, I will be home probably, but I'm so excited. We retired to Alaska 3 years ago, or 4 years ago, almost, from California. And we love living here. For one thing, I'm not good in heat. I grew up in California my entire life and have lived as an adult in California my entire life. But I don't do well with all that 100-degree weather, heat and everything. And I love it here. But the first year we were here, I had to have a few different surgeries, which was not a fun year. And then after that is when COVID decided to strike. So we've been kind of housebound. And last summer, we decided to get an RV, a small one. It's a 25-foot one. so that we could travel around Alaska. But we only got as far as 45 minutes away to a really beautiful campground last fall. And then it started snowing. So much for that. So we are leaving on Monday, so I'm not going to be in my Facebook group for, well, I don't know. I don't know how many campgrounds might have Wi-Fi. So I may be there and I may not. So if you see this and you're part of my Facebook group, which I would love all of you to be, there'll be a link at the bottom about that. I won't be there for a while, which is going to be weird because I just love hanging out in there with everybody who's there. They're also so nice. It's such a great community of people. And I just wanted to get something posted before I leave. So this is it. I hope that this does help you somehow to just go ahead and jump in and take the risk. In the Facebook group lately, we have been, I post a post every Monday that's called Monday Motivation. And I just choose quotes from different people about different things that I think might motivate people. And lately I've been choosing some that have to do with art being risk-taking. And so it's kind of like me saying, just, take the plunge, take a risk and try something new. And if it doesn't work, like the first time I tried this and I didn't know to put the temporary tape on the back and all I had was like 1,000 little pieces of paper, hey, that's okay. It's just paper, right? It's just paper. Try again. Try plan B and plan C until you find something that works for you. I'm just going to put this down like this and have it be right there. Yes, I do like that sitting up better than I would if I had just put it flat. Now I'm going to just take a second off camera and do my little circle die on the sentiment, and I'll be right back. Okay, I cut that out, the sentiment, out of that little sentiment that came with the paper, and then I cut a background circle out of the purple extra paper that I had from cutting the flowers. And I'm just going to use some liquid glue to stick them together. Get it centered. Stick it on there and hold it till it sets. Okay, that's going to go right there, and I'm just going to glue it on with some more liquid glue. And then while I've got my liquid glue out, I think I'm going to go ahead and add a few pink pearls here and there to just kind of finish it up, give it a little bit of embellishment. Let's see, I never can decide exactly where I want them. I have to move them around a little bit. Maybe add another one over here. Have little 3 groups of 2. I kind of like that. So I'm going to go with that and glue these down. I'm glad that I did this card. It was just in my imagination this morning, and I didn't know exactly how it was going to work out. But when I saw this paper pad, I just got inspired, and it's been really fun because, like I said, I've been doing a lot of assignment type things where I am using the dies, and they're beautiful and wonderful, and stamps and whatever, and I get to do my own thing with them, but it's just kind of nice to pick something out that's completely different that I get inspired by. And that's been this. Oh, this is not easy for me. Get that back in there. And then I do think I'm going to add one more thing, and that is I'm going to put a little bit of sparkle on the flowers. I have the couple brands of these, but they all work really well. I'm just going to put a little bit of sparkle on the petals just to give it a little bit of oomph. And then we will be done. I hope that you've liked this flower and that you've been inspired. Oops, that's a little bit much. Let me get a little paper towel here. And that you have been inspired to do something, try something, even if it's not the same thing, try a risk. See how it works for you. Do something new, something you've never done before, and have fun doing it. Don't be hard on yourself. I'm such a terrible perfectionist with myself, but I'm learning to tone it down and just be an artist and have fun. And that's what my hope is for you. So if it would help me a whole lot if you would go ahead and click like on this video and make a comment, because I don't know exactly how they do it, but YouTube keeps track of this kind of thing and it helps me. So I would appreciate that. And I would really love you to be in my Facebook group, and I'll put the link down at the bottom so you can check it out. We have such a good time in there and everybody is so nice, so understanding, so supportive, so encouraging. And I would really love you to check it out. Should I put any on there? I don't think so. I think I'm done with the flowers. Let me look in it and make sure I've got all of them done. And I think I do. And then I'm going to show you the card one more time. And I think you can see the sparkle if I kind of shine it like that, trip it like that. And I hope you like it. I hope you've liked this tutorial, and I will see you again after vacation. Thanks so much for coming today. I really appreciate it. Bye.